Good morning. This last Wednesday afternoon, I was ready to watch America go back into space again, launching from here on American soil there down at the Kennedy Space Center. Didn't happen because of the weather, but we're going to try again tomorrow, and I will be watching. It was so exciting when America was going into space. I think one of the things it did to our nation that was caught in such a difficult time in the 60s was it helped us to dream about things that seemed impossible, to dream about better ways and a better life. It was an exciting time, and it gave us something to dream about, to think in new ways. We're going to go to the moon. Well, now we're talking about going to Mars. That really is the dream of Elon Musk and the dream of NASA. Can we go to Mars? It's been 60 years since we first had this dream from John Kennedy saying we're going to put a man on the moon and bring him home safely by the end of the decade. I remember very well they chose those original 7 astronauts. I had a chance to meet Alan Shepard one year. Marsh and I were at a Christmas party at a friend who worked at NASA, and Alan Shepard came, and she and I got to visit with him, and he really was a neat guy. But then it was Gus Grissom. Alan Shepard and Gus Grissom both went up in a low orbital flight. But then it was John Glenn. And when John Glenn went up, he would orbit the Earth twice, the first American to go up and to orbit the Earth. Scott Carpenter was also one of the original 7 astronauts. He would be the 4th, but he was working on communications when we got ready for John Glenn to be on this bigger rocket than had been the past 2 flights that was going to try to blast him into space and orbit the Earth. And when the countdown was through and those rockets, the engines began to rumble and it started to lift off the pad, it was Scott Carpenter who said, "Godspeed, John Glenn." That line has just echoed for the last 60 years. Godspeed, John Glenn. He later said what he meant was, may God give you the speed to get into orbit. May God bring you back home safely. Godspeed, John Glenn. It was an incredible flight. Scott Carpenter would go next, and he too would orbit the Earth. He was a neat man, a man of faith, a man who talked all about being in outer space, and now for the first time with Glenn and then Carpenter, you looked back on Earth, this little ball in this vast darkness, the blackness, the inky black of space, and this beautiful blue ball. He said it was so awe-inspiring and so overwhelming. And they began to take pictures, and all of us began to see something we'd never seen before. It helped us to all dream something about being bigger. Scott Carpenter obviously retired. Years had gone by. The last 2, the original 7 astronauts to be alive, Scott Carpenter and John Glenn. Scott Carpenter had moved to Vail, lived up in Vail. When he was 84 years old, he finally decided to stop skiing. He'd been skiing to then, having a ball. At 87, he was still sharp as a tack. And he gave a fascinating interview, and I will always remember. He said, they asked him, how do you want to be remembered? And he said, I want to be remembered as a fortunate man. They interviewed 153 people to be astronauts. 7 got chosen. I'm fortunate. I'm so grateful. I was blessed. And I want to be remembered as an humble man because it wasn't about me. It took thousands of people to make that dream come true. But let me tell you something else. Do you know the finest gift God has given to people? It's the gift of awe. For awe makes you feel alive. I think that's the reason I'm excited about this space program and going back into space and dreaming of going to Mars. So maybe we all can have a little more awe and wonder in our lives. It's what helps you to feel alive. I think of the psalmist who wound up saying, when I look at the heavens, the works of thy fingers, the moon and the stars which thou hast established. Maybe tonight would be a good time to pause, to go outside, to look at the stars and the moon, and to think about the vastness of space, to be filled with wonder and awe. maybe as we begin to blast off into space again, there will be somebody else who is there in communications who says, Godspeed, John Glenn. This time, we're going to Mars. Have a great day.